All right. Let's make sure everything is locked and loaded and we will begin. Let's just make sure we're all live here. I got to see it. Make sure. YouTube, it looks like YouTube's load. Yep, YouTube's there. Yep. Rockfin, where you at? Rockfin, there's Rockfin. Okay. All right. We're live. What's up, everybody? How are we? Good to see you. Romplicone here, and welcome to episode 3 of Expatriate. I know this is kind of a random time to do it, but as some of you probably already know, I am getting ready to go to Iceland for the Reykjavik Fringe Festival. Speaking of international travel, I'm getting ready to go out to Reykjavik for their Fringe Festival, and I wanted to do another episode of Expatriate before I left. So, for anyone, this is your first time catching this. This is a series under the Get Your News On with Ron banner that is all about different ways to leave the United States. Should you be looking to do that, or want to do that, or just want to have a plan? Maybe you're just thinking, hey, I don't have any plans to leave in the immediate future, but I'd like to have a plan should I ever decide to go that route. That's the category I personally fall into. And so during the past few years, I've been kind of researching pretty extensively different ways one can leave the United States, and thought I would make a podcast series sharing some of my findings. This topic, the topic for this episode, which was decided by Twitter poll, by the way, is digital nomad visas. I put out a Twitter poll a little while ago, and I gave a couple options for the next episode. And based on the results, those are going to be the topics for the next episode. So today's topic is digital nomad visas. So let's start basic. What is a digital nomad? Well, a digital nomad is basically anybody who works remotely so they can kind of do their job wherever. If they have a decent internet connection, they can do their job. Doesn't really matter where they're living. That basically qualifies one to be a digital nomad. And the one qualifier, too, is that you are not competing with the local job market wherever it is you are. So your job has nothing to do with where you're living, basically. And here's something that they kind of specify here in Forbes to get into the definition of the visa. This is from an article in Forbes magazine. What's a digital nomad visa? Digital nomad visas are authorizations to work in countries while the applicants are staying there. Like tourist visas, they are easy to obtain, but in addition, they allow for longer stays. A digital nomad visa allows its holder to work during their stay in a country. Now, here's some important verbiage here. Provided they do not enter the local labor market, they do not compete for jobs with local residents, and work independently from local employers. So what that means is let's say you are American and you want to go live in Portugal. There's a reason Portugal is my example. We'll be talking more about that later. But let's say you want to go live in Portugal. You work for an American company, but you work totally remotely. Based on the way they're defining it here, you would likely still qualify. You work for an American company. If that company has nothing to do with Portugal, well, you're not competing with the local job market. You're not competing with locals for anything. And your job is not dependent on being there. Your job is totally remote, and you're just kind of living in Portugal. So let's go into what types of jobs are common digital nomad jobs. This is a kind of interesting article. This is from a website called gooverseas.com, and it kind of lists the best digital nomad jobs. And I kind of scrolled through this. It's pretty interesting. Some of the salary information, I think that's sort of like arbitrary. I think it really depends on the person and the situation. But nonetheless, it's a pretty interesting guide here. 14 best digital nomad jobs in 2022, travel and work from anywhere. So what is a digital nomad job? Digital nomads jobs can be done anywhere globally. All you need is a strong internet connection. Many digital nomads live and work in sunny locations like Bali and Chiang Mai. These jobs let you work from anywhere, whether you're out on the road, at an airport, or at the beach. All right, so let's look at some of these jobs. Now, first, they go on to recommend freelancing platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. Job boards like Remote OK, We Work Remotely, LinkedIn, AngelList, Crunchbase, a Go Overseas job board is in existence. Now, real quick before we continue, A lot of you guys have been asking me, where can we are you going to be compiling the resources that you use for this podcast series? Yes, I am. The best way to keep tabs on that, whether you get this show from YouTube, Twitter, Rockfin, or from the podcast later, best way to keep on top of that, subscribe to my Substack. It is romplacone.substack.com. I will be making a post after each episode compiling the resources that I use. So if you're thinking, man, there's a lot of information there that's valuable, I want to learn more, I will be compiling all those web links. And keep in mind, I kind of looked up these resources ahead of time to feel like, yes, these resources are pretty fruitful. They have a lot of jumping off points and they're helpful. So yeah, so subscribe to my Substack, romplacone.substack.com. It's totally free. And I'll be making a post for each episode. I'll also be putting these links in the episode notes as well. So there's plenty of ways to get it. But subscribing to the Substack, best way to do it, and kind of use that as an accompanying guide. So here's some of the jobs that they list here on this Go Overseas post. We're not going to go through all of them, but marketing jobs. If marketing is your background, there are many digital nomad jobs to choose from. SEO specialist. Now, this is how you work to make sure that people get the best search results in Google searches and stuff like that. Common tools used are Google Analytics, Keyword Ranking Program, Google Search Console, and Keyword Planners. Social media and community manager. Maybe you're managing a Twitter for a company or a brand, or a Facebook or an Instagram for a company or brand, or maybe for a celebrity, something like that. Tech jobs, IT, web developer, programmers. Creative jobs, here we go, freelance writer, graphic designer, vlogger, YouTube content creator. Hello. Video producer. Now, here's a couple things that I'll say about that. So you get the idea of jobs. A few things that I'll say on this just generally. One thing you have to keep in mind is kind of the nature of your remote job and would it lend itself to you being in a different location. Now, what I mean by that, let's use these two examples. Let's say you are a personal assistant or, a virtual assistant, and you're a virtual assistant to somebody who lives in New York City, and you want to go live abroad and you want to be a digital nomad, and you would probably get a visa that qualifies. One thing you have to keep in mind, though, will it be easy for me to do my job in a different place based on the time zone? Even though I'm a virtual assistant, if your client or most of your clients are in New York City, say, and when it's noon in New York City, it's 2 in the morning where you are, or whatever it is, well, will that be easy to do? Are they going to be hitting you up saying, hey, can you schedule this meeting for an hour from now? And you're not going to be awake for another 5 or 6 hours because it's in the wee hours of the morning where you're at. That's something to consider. Now, maybe that's something you thought about ahead of time. You kind of like working those hours and you think it'll work. That's cool. But that is something to keep in mind. Now, on the other hand, let's say you're a graphic designer and all of your work is very just task oriented. And it's just all about meeting a deadline. Well, a job like that would probably be a lot easier to be a digital nomad, whether your clients are elsewhere, whether they're in the United States or anywhere else. It's probably not that big of a thing because you just kind of have the deadline. You understand the time difference. When they contact you for whatever, it's not going to be crazy time sensitive because it's just, okay, I'm going to do my design work. I'm going to send it to the client. The client will see it in their inbox in the morning or whatever. They'll send me some notes back. I'll see it in the morning. We work together. Meeting the deadline is not really a problem. It doesn't really matter where I live. So you see how, even though it's a remote job, there are still some things you need to consider before making that decision to be a digital nomad. So that's just a couple thoughts on jobs and what it means to be a digital nomad, the types of jobs, and what a digital nomad visa is. Now, another thing, and I'm sorry if this is stating the obvious, it's not like you could just get a digital nomad visa and it is just a digital nomad visa. Here's my digital nomad visa. I'm going to go live here, 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 and everywhere. I'm on my way. I have this digital nomad visa. I can live anywhere I want. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, it'd be cool if it did. It would be cool if there was just some like random digital nomad visa and you just like there's a big old list of places you can just live in any of them whenever. That'd be pretty neat. But that's not really how it works. You actually get a digital nomad visa for a particular country. And generally speaking, and we're going to get into some specifics here in a second, digital nomad visas are usually pretty inexpensive for the application process. Sometimes they are completely free. Other times there's a fee, and the fees are usually pretty reasonable. The more expensive end that I've seen is in the range of 200 US dollars. And that's on the way more expensive end. Usually it's less than that. At times it is free. So I would say if you're thinking 0 to $200 range, that's a pretty safe range to be in. Obviously, $200 is significantly more than 0, but compared to the cost of some visa applications, this is usually among the more affordable ones. And I think the reasons for that are pretty obvious. If you're a digital nomad, you're not competing with the local job market. You're not going to take a job from a local. You're not in their local labor market, but you are spending money in their country. So you're getting money from elsewhere. No local is going to lose a job because you're there, but you're spending money in their economy. You're going to go patronize a coffee shop each day because maybe you work out of a coffee shop. You're going to go out to eat there. You're going to go drink at the bars there. You're going to enjoy entertainment there, whatever it is. So they know that. So that's why a lot of different countries have a lot of digital nomad visa programs. So, and one other quick thing I want to say as an aside. There is something that's sort of related to digital nomad visas, but it's not a direct relation. It's almost like a distant cousin, if you will. And it's not quite the same thing as a digital nomad visa, and that is smart working programs. Now, I'm going to just talk about this briefly, but just kind of put a pin in this for later because this isn't a digital nomad visa, but I feel like it's loosely related, so I wanted to mention it now. But just so you know, I'm going to do a future episode about this topic. So if you're thinking, whoa, I want to know more about that, a future episode on this topic is coming. But for right now, it's just sort of an aside because it's loosely related to digital nomad visas, but it's not quite the same thing. There are programs out there in different parts of the world, particularly the ones I'm most familiar with now are ones in Italy, where a village or a town wants to get people to live there because their population is declining. So what they've started is they've started smart working programs. Now, what this means, so smart working is what they say in Italy and I think some other countries. That's what they mean for remote work. They call it smart working. And here's another fun aside. The reason they call it that, this is according to a buddy of mine who lives over in Italy. He told me the reason they call it that is because when the pandemic happened, well, it's still happening, but when lockdowns officially started and stuff like that, in Italy, they didn't really have a word for working from home or remote working. Like it just wasn't really a common thing there, according to my friend. It wasn't really a common thing there. So they just didn't even really have a designation for it. So they started referring to it as smart working, and it just kind of stuck. So when you hear smart working and it's coming from a place like Italy or another country in Europe, that's what they mean. They mean remote work. So what these programs are is you apply specifically to the program. Now, again, this is a little different than a digital nomad visa because you're not just applying for that visa for a country, you're applying to this specific program, which means you have to go and live in the place where you're applying for the program. But here's what they do. You basically prove to them that you work remotely. And if they accept you, what happens is you go and you live in this place for a period of time. It could be anywhere from 2 months, or excuse me, 6 months to a couple years. And not only will you get to live there and work remotely, but they will pay part or in some cases all of your rent. So you can go there and these are smaller villages in Italy. The cost of living is not super high. So in some cases, your rent might be about 500 US dollars a month, maybe even less than that, and you're only paying half that or less. So, let's say you get a place for 500 US dollars a month, the equivalent of that. They're paying half of it. Well, you're only paying $250 a month to live. And you work remotely, and if you like it, you can settle there basically. So that's a different thing. That's not a digital nomad visa. That's its own thing. We will be having episodes specifically about that in the future, but it's kind of related to digital nomad visas because it involves remote working, but it sort of is its separate thing. So maybe you're not sure about a digital nomad visa. Maybe something like this appeals to you. So that episode will be coming in the future. But for now, let's just stick to digital nomad visas. So again, like I said, it's not just like a random visa you can get and live anywhere. You have to get it for a specific country. And there are a lot of countries that have digital nomad visas. This is a really cool web resource that lists 41 of them. That's a lot of countries. I think that's a good start. So let's go to this. This is from a website called Nomad Girl. No thanks. Let me click out of that. 41 countries with digital nomad visas, the ultimate list. Obviously, we are not going to go through all 41 of these countries, but we're going to highlight a few things. So many countries, especially the ones dependent on tourism, have seen their economies decimated by the COVID-19 pandemic. To offer relief to their economies as they embark on bringing in long-term stayers via specially designed visas for freelancers and digital nomads. The idea is those long-term stayers, even though temporary, will make up some of the shortfalls of tourism. So that's the thing to keep in mind if you're thinking that something like this is for you. A lot of countries, they want this to restart their economies. Again, that's why digital nomad visas are generally not that expensive. Now, as you'll notice as we go through some of this list, where are they a little more expensive? Well, more popular destinations. The more popular destination, it might be a little more to get the digital nomad visa because they don't need it as much. Whereas if you are, so you get the idea. All right. So Georgia is the first country that is listed here. Now this is interesting. Let me start with why I think this is from the list here. Let me start with why I think Georgia makes an excellent case for the best digital nomad destination. 95 countries can enter Georgia visa free, stay up to 365 days. And tell me one other country that has rolled out the welcome mat thus far. They have created a remotely from Georgia program, which essentially lets you bypass the travel restrictions in place and allow you to come and work from Georgia remotely. And they list specifics here. So the cost of this program is free. And this is something else that this web blog gives you. They tell you the cost of the program to apply, basically. They give you the length of it. They give you the income that you need to prove. They give you the cost of living index, and they give you the internet speeds. So they list Croatia here. Croatia's program. Now, Croatia is a pretty popular country, especially with Game of Thrones. So much of Game of Thrones was filmed in Croatia, so everyone wants to go and see the castles. So their program's a little more expensive to apply to. It's between 80 and 130 euro to apply. And the maximum length is 1 year, but it can be reapplied after 6 months. Czech Republic, they list here. Now, that program is free 1 year, but can be extended. This is the income you have to prove. Now, a thing with income, in some cases, you just have to prove what you're making each month, and you have to show them that. In other cases, they just need to see that you have a certain amount of savings, and the savings goes up if it's you and another person versus just you. And if you just show them that you have that amount of savings, they're probably going to approve you. Now, I'm going to say something about this next destination, Estonia. So Estonia has an e-residency program. Now, the cost of their digital nomad program, 80 euro for a short stay, 100 for a long stay. You can go up to 1 year, and you have to prove a certain amount of income. Now, the thing about Estonia is going to be the topic of our next episode. When I did the last Twitter poll, the topics were digital nomad visas, Estonia, and citizenship by descent. Digital nomad visa got the highest ranking. Estonia got the second highest. So there's some There's some speculation floating around about Estonia. In our next episode, we're gonna break that down. I'll give you a little foreshadowing. Um, it's not quite as amazing as some people are saying it is. Not the country, the program. I've never been to the country. I have no idea how cool or not cool that country is. But the program that people reference sometimes, a lot of times it sounds like it's too good to be true. That's because it is, and we're gonna be breaking that all down next episode. So yeah, but they do have a digital nomad program too. That's something totally different. Iceland, where I'll be going shortly. Germany, and Germany does have a pretty good digital nomad program. Now it costs €100 to apply to that. Norway, Portugal. So let's read about Portugal. Portugal has an independent workers and entrepreneurs visa, which is for 1 year, but you can renew this for up to 5 years. After 5 years, you have the option to go for permanent residency. You can enjoy living and working in Lisbon, Porto, or the stunning beaches of the Algarve. Now, the cost for this, €83 for the visa and 72 for the resident permit fee. You can stay from 1 to 5 years. The income you have to prove is €600 per month. Now, I'll say this, and of course, I'm going to post this list, and you can check out all 41 countries on this list. Now, if I was applying for a digital nomad visa, which country would I pick? I would pick Portugal for the reasons that they kind of summarized on that web posting. Portugal has a program where you can get a digital nomad visa. You can live and work in Portugal, and then you can renew it fairly easily. And then after 5 years, you can get permanent residency, which permanent residency pretty much means you can do everything in that country but vote or run for office, more or less. So you get health care and all that. And then from there, you can kind of get citizenship. So if you're really looking to relocate and you want to go the digital nomad route, I think Portugal is a very good, straightforward way to do it. We are going to do future episodes specifically about Portugal and this visa and how it dovetails into permanent residency. So I can tell you, if I was going the digital nomad route, Portugal would be my pick. That would be the route I'd go. But Portugal is actually not the most popular destination for digital nomads. The most popular destination, and this is not super surprising. We're going to go back to this Forbes article, and I've confirmed a few different places. This is the most popular digital nomad destination. Here, let me scroll up here. I want to show it to you guys. This is a drum roll. The most popular place for digital nomads is Thailand. This is back from that Forbes article. Thailand leads the world as the world's top country for digital nomads based on a number of criteria, including temperature. It's pretty nice there. The weather's pretty great. Cost of living, internet speed, and the variety of activities available as determined by Club Med. Phuket was ranked as the top place in Thailand. Anyone who has traveled to Thailand will attest to the beauty of its beaches and the easy lifestyle to be found there. So, fun fact, most popular digital nomad destination, Thailand, which I get. Thailand is a very, very beautiful country. I've never been, but it's a very, very beautiful country. The cost of living is very low. So, if you're making your money online, you could kind of go pretty far with a little bit, basically. I have some friends who have moved to Thailand. In every case, it was to teach English. And out of all my friends who have done it, actually, now that I think about this, out of all my close friends who have done that, or closer friends, none of them have left. They have all stayed. Now, granted, there's only two of them, but there's other people I kind of know more casually that have done that, but I don't know what they're up to now. But there's two friends of mine that I'm relatively close with. They went out to Thailand to teach English. Both of them, in each case, have not left. They have stayed out there, and it's their home now. They have no plans on leaving. So I can see how Thailand is attractive to digital nomads. Now let's keep going through this article. Do digital nomads pay tax? Ooh, I know that's the headache part. but I feel like it's something that we need to mention, and I feel like this article kind of sums it up pretty nicely. So this is from the Forbes article. That depends on your country of citizenship. For example, American digital nomads must file U.S. taxes even if working abroad remotely. The United States is one of the more hawkish countries when it comes to getting your tax money. In fact, I think they're one of the most. They're like top two most hawkish countries. Well, when it comes to everything else, too, but when it comes to you paying your taxes, it's the land of the free unless you want to leave. They don't make it easy to leave. They will hunt you down for taxes no matter where in the world you are. And it actually costs a decent amount of money. I think it's $2,300. It costs a decent amount of money to renounce your U.S. citizenship. So if you're thinking, well, if I leave, I just want to renounce my citizenship, be done with it, that actually costs a pretty penny. Now, what they do have is they do have some agreements with other countries around the world on double taxation, where, in other words, you won't be taxed twice. So let's say you are living in a different country, you are paying taxes there because you live and work there. You just have to fill out a form. You will not owe the United States any tax dollars in most cases. But again, that depends on the country you're in. As this article goes on to say, it depends on the country of your citizenship. For example, American digital nomads must file U.S. taxes even if working abroad remotely. That is because the country takes its taxes its citizen based on their citizenship as opposed to residence. If you are an American and earn over the minimum amount required to file a tax return, you must file a U.S. tax return even as a digital nomad. Again, though, you might not owe anything. If there's an agreement that you're not going to get taxed twice, you're not going to owe anything. You just kind of have to file for, account, bookkeeping sense. And there are different organizations out there that specialize in dual citizenship or, like living abroad, expats, taxes. I know that H&R Block has a program meant for people who live and work abroad. We're going to do future episodes specifically on that. And again, I will put this disclaimer out there for the episode, and I'll put it out there now. I am not a tax expert. I am not a tax expert. I am not qualified to give tax advice. I am not giving tax advice. This is for entertainment purposes only and a resource for you to dig deeper. All right. So, however, if you live elsewhere, you may be able to avoid paying taxes entirely as a digital nomad, provided you do not establish a tax presence in the country in which you propose to work. In the case of Americans here, so they bring up the renunciation. In the case of Americans, this will require a renunciation of your American citizenship. Avoiding taxation will largely depend on the length of your stay in the given country where you are a digital nomad. For example, in the case of Canada, if you are not physically present for 183 days in any tax year and you do not hold significant assets there, you are not taxable. But then that country does not offer digital nomad visas, which is interesting. I didn't know Canada didn't offer that. You are looking for countries that have the visas and tax like Canada does. Digital nomads have been known to plan their travel in such a way that they never incur tax liability anywhere by avoiding stays in any country long enough to trigger tax liability. Sometimes this could involve traveling between 3 or more countries each year to minimize physical presence in any one of the tax jurisdictions. So in other words, if you have a digital nomad visa for a certain country, but you only stay there so long and you go to a different country and you stay there as long as you're allowed to stay there, because keep in mind, you could stay in different countries for a certain amount of time before you need to have any type of paperwork, basically. So, I guess some digital nomads, they're very thrifty. They know how to do that. But basically, for the sake of this episode and for the sake of this topic, just sort of do your research ahead of time and know. My best advice is know what kind of relationship the country you're going to has with the United States as far as taxation works. Do they have an agreement on no double taxation or don't they? So will you have to pay taxes in both places, or will it just be you pay taxes in one of them and then you just sort of, file the paperwork for good old Uncle Sam. Good old Uncle Sam. So I think that kind of covers the digital nomad visa episode. We'll be doing more specific episodes on digital nomad topics and related digital nomad topics like the smart working programs. That will be a future episode. Next episode is going to be on Estonia. Now, I know this series has been kind of sporadic. This is only our third episode. I'm still figuring it out. But once I get back from Iceland, I'm going to be doing it more regularly, and I'm going to try. I'm going to try to do a couple of them a month. I know I started saying this is going to be monthly. A lot of you guys have requested, can it be more than monthly? So I'm definitely going to try to make that happen once I get back from Iceland. Which, by the way, a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, show's going to be sporadic coming up here because I'm going out to Iceland. So the full length streams will be on hold while I'm at the festival. They will come back shortly after the 4th of July. So I will be back, but we will be taking a little bit of recess here from Expatriate and from Get Your News On with Ron. The full length. I'll still be coming at you with short videos and other content like that, but the full length streams, they're going to be on hold for a little while, coming up here shortly. Also, another announcement, Antitrust Summer still going on. Go to antitrustsummer.com, sign that petition now, please. It takes 40 seconds. And there are 2 antitrust bills in Congress now. They have a good chance at passing, but we got to scream and shout so that they bring it to the floor the way they promised they would. They're supposed to bring it to the floor this week. Chuck Schumer promised to bring it to the floor this week, but Chuck Schumer has a daughter who's an Amazon lobbyist. So we really got to rally. Antitrustsummer.com. Please sign the petition. Tour dates. I got them. Iceland. Coming to the Reykjavik Fringe Festival. My shows are June 28th and June 30th. You can get tickets straight from my website at ronplacone.com. I got links that take you to the festival's website. You can get tickets for my shows. And I can't wait to see you, Reykjavik. And then Pacific Northwest. July 28th, Portland, Oregon. July 29th, Seattle, Washington. July 30th, Vancouver, British Columbia. That's myself and Graham Elwood. We're going to be doing a weekend in the Northwest. Can't wait to see you. You can get tickets for those shows at ronplacone.com. Guys, thank you for tuning in. And again, I will be providing all these resources in the show notes. And also, the best way to keep track of all this, subscribe to my Substack, ronplacone.substack.com. It is free to subscribe. I will be providing all the links from this week's episode and all future episodes. So it will be an easy place for you to just kind of dive in and read more extensively about the things you want to read more extensively about. Thank you for being here. This has been Expatriate, Episode 3, Digital Nomad Visas. We'll be back probably next week. There will be a send-off before I leave for Iceland. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace, love, and a general strike. Peace.